discuss the incidents that happened recently at the international airport. Upon discussion, the panel on economic developments will be discussing preparatory work for the commissioning of the 3-one-way system and the emergency response mechanism of the Hong Kong International Airport. On the regular meeting of the 8th of October 2024, the members of the panel on transport are also invited to join the meeting. Members who are interested to join, please sign up for it. Next item, items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will be held on the 18th of October 2024. We're going to discuss the Universal Accessibility Program. We only have one item as of right now. Any comments? If not, then we endorse the item first. Third item on the agenda, combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward and study of regulation of online hire car hailing platforms. Would the government officials please enter the room? Members, if you would like to put questions, you may press the button now. According to Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the items of discussion today, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak.
Hi. Hi,
Mr. Michael Tian, can you read out the names of the members who have pressed the button, because there's another meeting going on. Mr. Tian, you are the fifth to speak. Would the administration please walk us through the paper? Secretary, please. Chairman, we are here to brief members on the enhancement of the existing legislation relating to hire cars for combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward, as well as the preliminary finding on the study on the regulation of online hire car hailing platforms. First of all, the stance of the administration is very clear. We accord top priority to the interest of the people. We want to enhance personalized point-to-point transport services. We want to make use of technology to enhance the service quality. We have to protect the interest of the people, as well as to ensure the healthy and sustainable development of the transport sector. We cannot tilt in favor of any particular sector. We do not agree with the allegations that the government is tilting in favor of the taxi sector. We are proposing legislation to combat illegal carriage of passengers for hire and reward, and we will also set up a framework to regulate online hire car hailing. The regulation of online hire car hailing would legalize hire car hailing, and we work together with the Department of Justice and the police to implement enhancement measures to cope with the illegal acts of hiring cars for illegal carriage of passengers. We want to complete all these tasks by 2025. We have made reference to other places. We think that the platform companies will have to be licensed and comply with the regulations. Also, the vehicles under the platform will have to also be licensed and obtain licenses or insurance. The drivers can only make use of the licensed platforms to offer pre-arranged services. There are three purposes of the legislation. First, we want to regulate online hailing platforms so that people can identify legal platforms to ensure their safety and interests. Also, we want to provide different services by offering platforms. Third, the drivers can make use of the legal platforms to provide legitimate service and to encourage more drivers to enter the sector. As for how many types of vehicles will be allowed and how many licenses will be issued, we heard a lot of different views and comments. The government will conduct study and to review the overall demand and supply of personalized point-to-point transport services, as well as the demand of the people. We will also take into account the online ride-hailing service for taxis. We will also take into account the impact brought to the road systems because the public transport cater to 90% of the local demand of transport services. We will also take into account the impact on the hire car hailing by imposing the framework. And we will see how the public transport sector will be affected upon regulating of the platform companies. We accord top priority to the interest of the society. The Transport Department will conduct study on the demand of passengers and the supply. We target that by 2025, we will publish the number of types of vehicles and the number of licenses, as well as the regulations on the drivers' proposed legislative framework. We welcome members' comments and questions. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. I'll read out the names of the members who have pressed the button. There are Lau Kwok Fan, Lo Wai Kwok, Chan Pui Lun, Luk Chung Hong, Michael Tian, Chan Xiu Hong, Dominic Lee, Kenneth Lau, Chan Hock Fong, Regina Ip, Chao Xiu Chung, Yan Wing Kit, Frankie Yik, Lin Man Kwong, Tony Che, Gary Chang, Yim Kong, and myself. 18 members have pressed the button to speak. 4 minutes, including question and answer. Please set aside time for the Secretary to reply. Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you, Chairman. I welcome and support the regulation of online ride car hailing platforms. This issue's been ongoing for quite some time, and there are members of the public who are worried about the legality of using online car hailing platforms and if they're covered by insurance. By having a set of regulations that will protect service providers and the users. There are people who are worried that their choices will be limited upon regulation. I think that the administration should strike a balance. And currently, the administration is vetting applications for taxi fleet. So my question is upon regulation of platform companies, when will you decide on how many licenses you will issue? The hire car permits are not limited to taxis, but also commercial vehicles, cross-boundary vehicles. For the cross-boundary 7-seater vehicles, well, there are a lot of such white licensed cars. How will you make sure that these 7-seater cross-boundary vehicles are legitimate? Can one licensed vehicles be registered under one legal platform, or can they be registered under different platforms? There are platform companies who are worried if the cars registered with their platform will be used for Uber ride sharing services. Secretary, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for the support. We will share with members the findings on the study on the regulation of ride-sharing platforms. We will formulate further details on the regulation in the future. Say, can one vehicles be registered under two different platforms, and if we have to tie the driver with a particular vehicle, we're still working on the details of the regulation. We think that it's important for us to regulate the platforms, but we also have to take into account the demand and supply for personalized point-to-point transport services. We'll continue with a study to see the demand of the people and the tourists for personalized point-to-point transport services, including cross-boundary transport services. We are working on the regulation. We are also studying on how many licenses we should issue. Thank you. Next, Dr. Lo Wai-kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Online ride or online hire car hailing platforms does not necessarily equate to offering ride-hailing service for reward. We welcome online ride-hailing service because such service exists for taxis. Online ride-hailing is not a bad thing. I think that the government should step up promotion of online ride-hailing service. And it should not be limited to the mode of ride-hailing with the taxi fleet regime. I think that we should keep up with the times and the government should act more proactively on illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. A few years ago, the electrical members had a consensus, and that was reflected in the decision that was passed on the 15th of March 2019. That is the motion to review the penalty level of illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. The problems of illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward are serious because these platform companies encourage unlicensed drivers to offer illegal services. We should promote online ride-hailing service and combat illegal carriage of passengers for hire and reward. We should work on these two areas. And we should issue licenses to taxis and legal ride-hailing service. A lot of people make use of illegal ride-hailing service because they are convenient. But I think that the government should work on it.
局長。
Secretary, your response? I agree very much with the member. Online hailing service is at this time and age something people are accustomed to. For the question of taxi fleets, will require that they provide services through multiple methods. In the past, we have phone hailing service. Now you can use a mobile phone app to book a car. The question is whether the car providing service has a permit. This is also one component of our smart city initiative. And that's why we would do our best to promote it. We've heard the members' comment, and we very much agree with them. Mr. Chen Pui-leung, with more and more platforms, hailing platforms, we know that online hire service, online hailed car service is very popular, and many people are switching over to this platform. But their service quality may vary, so I very much support regulation of such services. But we need to uphold one principle. Regulation is meant to promote healthy growth of the industry. We hope that online hailing platform can provide high quality and safe service, and also to bring healthy competition to the market, so that the public will ultimately be benefited. So on regulating illegal carriage of passenger for higher reward, well, we would like to see the measures really implemented, but we don't have a clear direction for the on future regulation of online hailed car platforms. We just don't want to see that regulation result in the elimination of such new service. As the Secretary said, you look at the future circumstances and look at the case for hire cars with permit. There are only 1,500 at present. Even if they are going to be operated through a platform, their number is too small to be significant in the consideration. Can you shorten the time needed for the next review? You are going to complete it in 1 year's time, and then there will be further discussions. Can you shorten the time span as far as possible, so that we can resolve the problems regarding online hailed car services? Thank you for your questions. The regulations will serve two purposes in our view. First, we want to ensure the safety of passengers and their rights. And we also have to pay attention to the healthy development of the transport industry. And I don't think the two to be mutually exclusive. If we want to see a healthy development of the industry, and given the two broad principles that I've mentioned, we need to strike a balance in terms of the numbers. As I've said in my opening remarks, we have to look at the demand for point-to-point passenger service. And we have to consider the implications for public transport and the ecology there. At present, we have a very healthy ecology for public transport. In our follow-up study, actually we are already embarking on such a study. We'll look into this. The Transport Department has collated some data, and in terms of the time frame, we would do it very quickly. I can promise you that we'll do it as quickly as possible. Mr. Luk Chung Hong, I'm glad that the Secretary mentioned that the public interest comes first in the proposed regulation. At present, the market is disorderly, it's chaotic. We have services provided by unlicensed online held cars. And there are also some black sheep in the taxi industry. And therefore, they have lost their ridership to online health cars. But online health cars cannot provide the proper safeguard for passengers. But the government should aim to be proactive and promote an effective market. So you should take away the market share from illegal services to regulated online services, so that they are operated in a legal manner, and then safety can be ensured. And also for the traditional taxi industry, they will be able to enjoy a bigger common market, and they should introduce improvements to their services with newer vehicles and better drivers' behavior. I think the most important issue here is the assessment of demand. We cannot say that this is a small market for the unregulated online hired cars. You should assess the demand, and this would in some way dampen the demand for private vehicles. If online hire cars are so convenient, they may consider giving up private car ownership. We have 1,500 hire cars with permits and 18,000 licensed taxis. Well, we need to increase the numbers, but it cannot be without a limit, because we have so big a car fleet in Hong Kong with so little road. So we need to take a middle-of-the-ground approach. I would like to ask the Secretary how this study is going to be conducted. And I welcome the idea from the government that this is going to be completed in 2025. But can you promise us that there will be some legislative proposals in the first half of 2025? And then this term of LegCo can resolve the problems of this problematic triangle with a multifaceted winning solution in the form of this triangle. Secretary, I don't have a lot of time. On the question of the assessment, I would like the Commissioner to say something. Mr. Luk, we have been working under a very compressed timetable. We will do our very best to achieve it. I'm confident that we can handle this within the current term. May I now defer to the Commissioner for the assessment model. We'll be talking about quantitative data and also the opinion from the public and we would collect some data for examination. We would also conduct some on the ground data, taxi stands, major tourist attractions, etc. We would look at the number of taxis and cars providing service, whether the waiting time is good, whether people can get on a taxi very quickly. But of course, if they are using illegal service, they may not be very honest in telling us the data. We will be collecting data through some online platforms, and then we will know how many people will be using online hailing platforms and how many will be hailing a taxi in the street. Mr. Michael Tin, I very much support the idea of regulation and combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. I think it's just a global trend to provide service through online hailing platforms. In 5 years' time, I gather not many people will be hailing a taxi on the street. We have 50,000 hire cars and 13,000 taxis. You are going to provide 1,500 hire car with permits. Now we have only got 1,000. Many people would like to use the point-to-point service. Such requirements are, in my view, mission impossible. 11,000 taxis are now linked to some hailing platforms. For private cars, I would estimate that to be 10,000. So altogether 21,000. This which much lower than those in Singapore. Not every taxi is registered with online hailing platform. If we reduce the number available suddenly, then how can we meet the shortfall in demand? How can we make up for the shortfall? First of all, that we will require the thousands of taxis to be registered with a hailing platform, and then a camera will be mandated to be installed. So there will be a proper dispute handling. And also for hire cars, they should also be using a platform. If a particular platform has attracted a lot of complaints, you can consider not to renew the registration. So we should have more hire cars with permits so that we can have altogether 20,000 odd cars and with 21,000, and we should have a few more thousand hire cars with permits. So as long as the operators can meet with your requirements, there's a proper vehicle, you have the requisite experience, you can join.
Secretary, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Tian, for the questions. Mr. Tian has at his hand a series of figures. In our study, we'll look at the demand of tourists and local people on personalized point-to-point transport services. Just now, the member compared us to Singapore. But Hong Kong ranks the first in terms of the usage of public transport. Over 90% of the daily trips are with public transport. As for the CCTV issue, We're actually conducting feasibility study on the installation of CCTV inside compartments of vehicles. I undertake that as at the end of this year, I will brief members on the mandatory installation of cameras inside taxi compartments. I note that Mr. Tian's comment. We will consider Mr. Tian's comment when we conduct our study. Mr. Chan Xiu-hong. Chairman, we have demand, and with the evolvement of technology, we want to have online ride-hailing service. I support the regulation of platform companies and combat illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. In the paper submitted by the administration, I don't think that there is a clear response on the people's request for quality personalized point-to-point transport services. I wonder if the administration will be issuing new licenses, if they're just regulating the platform without issuing licenses, and if only taxis will be able to provide personalized point-to-point transport services, then the people would be discouraged from taking taxis because of their poor service quality. If we don't have enough competition in the market, the people and tourists will be the losers. As mentioned by the Secretary in his opening remarks, we don't want to have the impression that the government is tilting in favor of the taxi industry. The administration should accord priority to the interest of the people. On suspension of vehicle licenses for 12 months for illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. Well, actually, some online ride-hailing services are legal. As mentioned, there are some 10,000 drivers registered with online platforms. And if we don't issue enough licenses, then the taxis would be selecting their passengers and refusing hire and provide even poor service quality. Without competition, the situation would be even more serious in the future. Currently, we have a lot of drivers offering online ride-hailing service, and will we have the same in the future? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chan, for the question. As mentioned in my opening remarks, there are two tasks that we will undertake in this year on the regulation of online ride-hailing platforms. We will continue to work on the details, and also we will improve the personalized point-to-point transport services. We will look at the demand and supply. We will conduct analysis and study. We will listen to the views of the people and look at the data. Mr. Chan is worried about our efforts on combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire reward. These are the two tasks that we take very seriously. On combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire and reward, we will improve our legislation. In December last year, we've actually increased the penalty for such offense. We'll look at the implementation of the legislative amendment, and we will work with the Department of Justice on it. we have to go through a series of complicated legislative process. I will work on both of these two tasks. Mr. Kenneth Lau, thank you. It's a trend that we have this online ride-hailing service. The 6 places set out in the paper already have such platforms, and in the mainland we have a lot of online ride-hailing service platforms. Different places may have different practices, and the development of online ride-hailing services is happening very fast. Finally, the administration is now studying on the regulation of online ride-hailing service platforms. Actually, in the last term of the government, they were trying to regulate online ride-hailing platforms and considered issuing licenses. I've been hearing about this taxi fleet regime for over 4 years. I wonder why it takes so long for the regime to be implemented. Shouldn't the government announce the names of the taxi fleets before imposing regulation? Secretary, thank you. I believe that you're talking about the taxi fleet regime. The legislation for taxi fleet regime was passed at the end of last year. In May, we started inviting applications for taxi fleets, and we received 15 applications. We are assessing the applications currently. Hopefully within this month, we will be approving no less than 5 taxi fleet licenses. The taxi fleet operators, upon receipt of license, will still have to undertake a series of tasks. They will have to form a fleet. We have various requirements for the operation of taxi fleet. The taxis will have to be less than 3 years old, and we also have requirements on the qualifications of the drivers, and we also have regulations on the handling of complaints of these operators. We ask the operators to install cameras inside the taxi compartments and offer e-payment methods for passengers. After the licenses have been approved, the operators will have to work on all these tasks. Next year, the taxi fleet will come into operation. By having this regime, we want to enhance the service quality offered by taxi drivers, and I'm confident that we will be able to achieve this goal. As mentioned by the Commissioner, we will look at the demand for personalized point-to-point transport services. If we are to issue hire car permits for online ride-hailing services in the future, we want to provide diversified services to enhance the service quality. Members who have not pressed the button, please do so now. After Mr. Chan Hak-fung has spoken, I will draw the line. Mr. Chan Hak-fung. Thank you, Chairman. I think, well, platform economy is a new form of economy, but we have to understand why online ride-hailing service is here. People have higher expectations for personalized point-to-point transport service quality. The reason why we have illegal ride-hailing platforms is because people are not satisfied with the service quality offered by taxi drivers. If our personalized point-to-point transport service is good enough, then we wouldn't have this illegal online ride-hailing platform. I'm disappointed by the paper submitted by the administration. I think we already have a consensus on the installation of cameras inside taxi compartments. I don't think that we still have to consult the sector, the public. I'm not sure when we will have cameras installed in taxi compartments. Every day, there are news reports on the poor service quality offered by taxi drivers. I don't think that the administration will have to study on the installation of cameras inside taxi compartments. Just tell us when you will mandate the installation of cameras inside taxi compartments to ensure the service quality offered by taxi drivers. Second, I completely agree that we have to combat illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward, because we'll have to protect our passengers and have them covered by insurance. How do we regulate personalized point-to-point transport services? Most of the taxis are owned by a single owners. The owners can choose when to drive their taxis. When can we regulate all the taxis and bring them under the online ride-hailing platforms? If we allow these 18,000 taxi license holders join the platforms on a voluntary basis, then we will not be able to regulate them very effectively. Even after, when the taxi drivers are registered under the online platform, it does not mean that they will provide good quality, but at least we can supervise or monitor them. Some taxi drivers are registered on a certain radio stations to receive orders. A lot of drivers take orders as they are driving. How do we regulate such behavior? Secretary. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chen has put a number of questions. For the installation of cameras, I'll ask the Commissioner for Transport to take that question. Last year, when we proposed the bill on taxi fleet regime, we want to actually enhance the service quality of the taxi drivers by having this regime to instill a new kind of culture into the industry. When a lot of taxi drivers are actually providing good service, then the rest of the drivers would be doing the same thing. I would like to ask the Commissioner for Transport to talk about the installation of cameras.
On the question of installation of cameras, we are following up the matter very actively. We have exchanged views with Macau authorities, and we have conducted field visits. And I believe the taxi industry will need to know more about the capacity of the system, how to deal with privacy. We'll consult them later. And also who can have access to the information collected. And there are also the recurrent costs regarding the operation, the uploading and downloading of information. But we will certainly consult the industry within this year. All right, we have many members who wish to raise questions, so please keep the time more stringently. Mrs. Regina Yip. Regulation of online health card service in a proper manner will be just the other side of the coin in respect of the regulation of taxi industry. I believe we started the discussion with Mr. Zhang Bingleung, and then we have Mr. Frank Chen. The permanent secretary was Chen Shui-fu, and now he has retired. So it has taken too long a time for the discussion. The taxi policy is a freak, a legacy from the colonial era. How can you allow people to hold a license in perpetuity, and then it can be flipped for speculative gains? Members have asked you how many permits will be issued, how many people can apply for, and what about drivers? What do you expect to be the number of drivers who join such online hailing platforms? And when are you going to do this? Of course, we would like you to do it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mrs. Yip, for your questions. You talk about this as if it's a twin issue or the other side of the same coin. Well, we hope that we can do a good job within the year. Well, we need to look at the details of the regulatory system, and also we need to assess the demand. We need to look at the data, of course. Some time will be needed for the Transport Department to do the data analysis. Mrs. Yip mentioned the question of drivers. After the assessment of demand is completed, and there are other issues that we need to look into with regard to the platform and the point-to-point transport service. If we are to issue permits to these drivers, what will be the requirements for them to meet? There are views expressed in this council and outside. Some would say that just give them a 1-year license or permit. Some would say that special training is required because online held cars are just like taxis. Secretary, time is limited. Let me just talk about a few important points. Demand. You need to understand the demand. In other countries, Uber service is more expensive, but people like these services. Second, drivers. You should require drivers to understand English. How else can they handle the tourists, etc.? Yes, we have heard different opinions. These will be taken on board in the study. Mr. Chow Siu Chung, thank you. Well, I'm glad to learn from the Secretary that the public interest will go first in the study. And also, we understand that it's a global trend to make available the personalized point-to-point service through online hailing platforms. As people who have visited the mainland would know that it's very popular there and it's a commonplace. So I hope you can see some development in the same direction to benefit the traveling public. I'm also in favor of regulation. But so far, the government hasn't been able to indicate a very clear direction to take. So I would like to offer 2 comments here. I hope public concerns can be allayed. First of all, the study is for the purpose of combating taxis or hire cars without a permit for carriage of passengers. So you are in a way indirectly protecting the interests of the taxi industry. Second, you are saying that we should use the public transport as the backbone of our transport system. I hope this will not become an excuse to limit the provision of on-night hire car services. So 2 questions here. Secretary, you talk about the need to assess the demand for on-night hailing services, and then you say you have to wait until the taxi fleets are up and coming. And also, do you know how many people are using these unlicensed, unregulated point-to-point passenger service? And is there a vision for this industry in the future on the part of the government? Would it be very convenient for passengers? I will defer to the Commissioner for some of the questions. Mr. Chow has 2 concerns. First, are we trying to protect the taxi industry? And also, secondly, are we going to emphasize the importance of public transport? First of all, as I've said, the purpose is first of all to protect the public. If you use a hire car and if your safety is not protected or your interest is not protected, then the government must act. So this is one of the purposes for us. Second, we have a very efficient public transport system. It's the cornerstone of our transport system. If we do something to compromise the efficiency of our public transport, there will be something bad for the general public. If we need to make available on-night held car services, then we need to look at these other aspects at the same time. Commissioner, well, we're not just to adopt one method for assessing the demand. We will conduct surveys, as I've said. We will collect opinion and also people's choice if online hailing platforms are available. And we also review the data collected. At the time, if we have some taxi fleets in operation, we will at the same time collect the data concerned. Mr. Yang Wing Kit, Secretary, as you said, I was attending the Health Services Panel meeting. If you may have to repeat your answer. Of course, you need to combat illegal hire services. Apart from regulating the service through platforms, you should also regulate the platform operations. I don't know whether you have used any taxi hailing platforms during peak hours, such as the evening hours, peak hours. Well, they would you see a long taxi queue, but the flags are down. They are not ready to take hire. They want you to use a hailing platform for the taxi service in question, and there is an additional cost to use it. Well, this is a nuisance. So you, apart from making available platforms, you need to regulate the operation of platforms. Yeah, well, from where I live, a Lockman Estate, you have many taxis who refuse to take hire from passengers, elderly passengers who want to go to see a doctor. Some of them are wheelchair bound and they need to use a taxi. So, Secretary, you should consider public interest. Apart from regulating the platform, are you going to ask people to pay more to use the platform, or are you going to regulate the platform so that people would find it convenient to use it? So if you have time, you can go with me and see whether you can use a taxi during the evening peak hours, or if you are not willing to provide a surcharge, whether you can get a taxi through a platform. Of course, I agree with combating illegal provision of service, but you should aim for convenience for passengers. Otherwise, people will still be aggrieved, even if hailing platforms are available. Mr. Yang, we are talking about the same subject here, and that is the general public, the people we serve. Also, you are not saying anything different from what I have stated in my opening remarks. When it comes to regulating the platform, and what we're trying to do here, we have to consider the same very issues that you mentioned. For example, if you use a mobile app, you can see there are a number of platforms available. There is competition. So how can we sustain healthy competition and at the same time to make it convenient for people to choose? We'll also look at the demand, but do something about demand, and also the important thing is to provide diversified services so that different needs from the passengers can be met. That will be one of our purposes. I thank Mr. Yang for his valuable input. Mr. Frankie Yik. Today the discussion is about combating illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward and study of online hire car hailing platforms. The Liberal Party has conducted a survey recently. The findings were announced yesterday. We are moving in the same direction in terms of regulation. When we ask people whether these should be regulated, 68.6% said yes. Whether the drivers should be assessed and licensed, 76.7% said yes. Should these cars be regularly registered? 81.8% said yes. So the general public generally support the same directions. And also, how about sharing of cars? Well, that was first mooted in California because of the lack of taxis. In England, they have the so-called black cabs, the traditional taxis that they use. And then they have come up with this idea of car sharing. Should we do the same in Hong Kong? Here, may I refer to a study. Our public transport system is the best in the world. It's a survey conducted in 2022. It's a survey conducted by UCLA. In 2022, they issued this report. We rank number 1 in terms of public transport. In terms of index 80, the average index is 51.7. It said that the public transport fares are low and efficiency very high. And if we look at the local situation, taxis, more than 10 years ago, they take about 1.3 million passengers per day. and now it's only 700,000, with the taxi number more or less unchanged. It's mainly because of the expansion of the railway network. So my question is it undersupply of taxi services? Some people do have certain adverse comments on taxi service, and the taxi industry has also issued a survey finding. Some 60% said service are good, and then 7% said not good. Some people are not happy about taxi service, and they would use unlicensed or online hire cars. And you have increased the penalties for unscrupulous taxi drivers. That would a lot would depend on law enforcement and how the court meted out punishments. How can you convince the court that this is something important for Hong Kong's reputation, and they should hand down severe punishments? Although the law permits the revocation of license, but this has never happened. Well, people are very positive about taxi service. The industry is also positive about taxi fleets. And I hope the government can relax some requirements. For example, the size of the taxi fleet can be bigger so that more taxis can join such fleets, and people can gain the benefits. And also, can you come back and tell us whether you will consider some devices installed on Macau, on taxis in Macau, such as cameras and anti-collision device? I haven't quite finished. All right, please wrap it up. My personal view is this. We need to look into whether there's a need to do what you are proposing. We need to have a balanced ecology with more cars on the road. Is it really good for Hong Kong? I don't want to hold up your meeting. Mr. Lee Chen-keung will supplement later.
I think we've all heard Mr. Frankie Yik. Next, Mr. Lerman Kwong. Thank you. After this paper's been published, there's been much discussion in the community. As mentioned by the Secretary in his opening remarks, the administration is not tilted in favor of any sector. But I hope that the administration will actually have regards to the interest of the people and meet their expectations. The administration have to face three realities. First, our regulation on personalized point-to-point transport services lag behind that of other advanced economies, including the places set out in the paper, as well as other Southeast Asian countries and places. Some 10 to 8 years ago, they already started regulating personalized point-to-point transport services. I think that we are lagging behind, and I think that the administration should speed up the regulation. Second, there is strong demand for personalized point-to-point transport services. I know that our public transportation systems is very advanced. People can choose to take MTR, bus, or taxis. Despite that, there is still large demand for personalized point-to-point transport service, and we have to find out why. I know the administration is conducting a study on it. Taxis are not enough. We have to talk to the online ride-hailing platforms for us to improve the study outcome. The third reality that the administration have to face is that upon regulation of the platforms, we have to also regulate the drivers and the vehicles management. We have to put in place simple regulation. If we just keep the number of hire car permits as it is, we will not be able to meet the demand. Making reference from other places, they have requirements on the driver's license, insurance, and the procedures on configurations of the platform. Some drivers are actually part-time drivers, and they offer services during peak hours to meet the deficiency in supply. I hope that the administration will reflect these three realities in the study to meet the public's expectation. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Leung, for the comment. For the three realities that you mentioned, the LegCo members and the administration, as well as members of the public, all are concerned about them. How strict should our regulations be? What requirements should we put in place for the driver's license? We've quoted from 6 examples from different places. However, these places have their particular circumstances. We cannot completely replicate what they're doing in Hong Kong. I think it's time for us to solve this problem. We have huge demand for personalized point-to-point transport services. We have to formulate our own system to solve the issue. Thank you. There is another item that we have to discuss within today. I think that we have already overrun. Would members who are about to speak please limit your time to 4 minutes. Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you. Same as other members, I just want to express my stance. I absolutely support the regulation of online hire car hailing platforms. We have to ensure that the service quality are up to par, and we'll also have to combat illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward. Is it because of the poor service quality of the taxi drivers and vehicle that is why we have high demand for illegal hire car hailing services? I think that we should have started working on the regulation earlier, as mentioned by other members. Is it because of the poor service quality offered by the taxi that so many people are hiring illegal cars? This gives rise to unfair competition, and that is why we have to combat the behavior. There is a certain level of demand for point-to-point transport service. About how high the demand is. For new territories, we have the blue taxis. We have to take into account the population growth in new territories. With the population growth, there will be more and more people choosing or opting for point-to-point transport service. In 1998, the government stopped issuing licenses. I think that it seems that the taxi licenses have become an investment product. People are speculating. I think that the administration should set a cap on the hire car permits. The reason why the service quality offered by the taxi drivers is not up to par is because the taxi license have become an investment product. And the license holders, as a result, only ask for a rise in taxi fares instead of offering better service to passengers. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your point on the improvement of taxi services. As I've said on multiple occasions, the taxi industry does have to improve their service quality. In light of this, in last December, we passed the legislation for taxi fleet regime. We hope to instill a new culture into the industry. Within this month, we will approve no more than 5 taxi fleet licenses. We're confident that with the taxi fleets, we can instill a new culture in the industry. I also agree with what Mr. Chan said, that we have to cater to the demand for personalized point-to-point transport services. As set out in the paper and as mentioned in my opening remarks, we accord top priority to the interest of the people. Next, Mr. Gary Chang. Thank you, Chairman. We used to talk about driving attitude and service quality offered by the taxi drivers whenever we talk about taxis. I appreciate the fact that the administration today also talk about demand and supply, and I think that's the crux of the problem. A lot of members raised some very good points on supply and demand as well. If we mandate all taxis to be registered with online platforms, can we solve the problem? I don't think so, because we have a fixed supply for hire car permits and taxi licenses. When one has got hold of such permits and license, they drive for full time. However, demand for transport services are flexible. It can change and vary a lot during peak and non-peak hours. If we set the number of permits and license at the peak level, then drivers cannot make a living. But if we set the level at the demand at non-peak hours, then passengers will not be able to hire any cars. The reason why the illegal ride-hailing platforms is so popular is because it's very flexible. Second, some members also talked about the impact caused to the public transport sector. The illegal ride-hailing platforms have been here for a number of years, and we haven't really regulated it. We allow it to grow organically. And we see that the public transport sector has not actually been affected by the illegal ride-hailing platforms that has been here for so long. So I don't think that there will be impact caused to the public transport sector by regulating the online ride-hailing platforms. I think that we have to calculate the number of trips and passengers that can be catered to by the existing number of hire car permits and taxi license, so that we can be more scientific in the analysis, so that we can determine the number of permits that we should issue. Lastly, I agree with what Mr. Champulan said. We regulate because we want to improve the service quality to meet the demand of the people. Also, there are a number of members who ask the government to complete the study as soon as possible. I think that 1 year time is too long. The administration should give us the relevant figures as soon as possible. As mentioned by Mr. Benson Look, I hope that we can start the legislative process within this term of the LegCo. Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Gary Chang gave us his views. Demand supply has to do with service quality. We hear Mr. Chang's view. In a study, we will consider the members' views. Mr. Yim Kong.
Thank you, Chairman. The society is concerned about issues regarding online health card services. We should go for regulation. But there should be a price differential between taxis and online health cards so as not to trigger an unhealthy competition. On the mainland, they have this flexi fare system. Taxis can take hires on the street, but online health cars should only be allowed to take hires through the platform and not on the road. In London, they have a requirement for online health cards, and that is during peak hours, the government should make arrangements for higher health card available according to government's requirements. So what kind of measure would the government consider in this direction? Mr. Yim Kong is asking about the fare levels and also how are we going to regulate the market. I may not be able to give you something very concrete regarding our position now. We need some time. We'll look at how other places are regulating these platforms. But the study has not covered all the details, such as fares. Well, these arrangements vary from place to place. In some places, they don't have a lot of taxis, and their public transport is not very comprehensive. But Hong Kong has the best public transport. Some 90% of passengers use public transport. So I cannot really just copy the practice, the arrangements of other places. Because different places may impose different conditions on their platforms for different reasons. We may make reference to them, but Mr. Yim, I hope you can give us more time. And I can promise you that we'll conduct the study along the directions mentioned. Now the Bureau has taken a small step to regulate online hailing platforms and combat the illegal carriage of passengers for hire or reward, because we want to eliminate the hazards for passengers using these illegal services. Why is it that these illegal services are still available? It's because we are not doing a lot to combat them, and therefore many drivers are still taking passengers for hire and or reward illegally. Or have you asked the court to hand down more severe penalties? Some people are saying that taxi services are poor, and therefore I would rather use online health cars. I can agree with the complaint part, but how can we do a proper regulation, and how can we make available properly regulated online hailing platforms in the future? it's important that we consider the implications for public transport. It's not really practicable that anyone can just use his or her own car for online health car services. Usually taxis are not capable of providing better service, not that they don't want to, especially during the current market conditions where they don't have a lot of business. Well, they may get better business during peak hours, but after 8 p.m. you see a lot of taxis parked on the road because the hires are different to come by. So we need to be fair to all. Although the online health cars are illegal, they may charge very different fares during different time periods. They can charge a lot during peak hours, but taxis are not able to do the same. But they have to pay for the taxi permit and other upkeep of vehicles. So, Secretary, are you going to ensure fairness for the two services? If you refuse to do more, then it may not be fair. So perhaps you should impose some proper requirements of on taxi on drivers. Mr. Lee, you have covered both taxis and online hire cars. Well, we have to remember that the taxi industry is part of the service industry, and perhaps the operating environment may not be ideal. That's why we want to have taxi fleets for enhancement of management and also for enabling certain incentives through taxi fleets to upgrade the overall service quality. Mr. Andrew Lam, when it comes to hire cars, whether online hailing or not, well, it's called hire cars on the mainland, and regulations would require certain details to be worked out, and such details would affect the overall environment. So we cannot deal with issues in isolation. That is to say, we cannot do this without looking at the overall demand and also the implications for other competitors in the system. First of all, we have different taxis, different colors, serving different regional areas. But online health cars are not restricted in such a way. If we don't look at the overall environment, and if we just target issues such as the lack of insurance coverage, that would be an incomprehensive study. Well, installation of cameras is something that can be done by the industry. That, in my view, doesn't require further study. Whether you spend another year or another 6 months, you must first of all come up with a decision on the way forward. So whether you regard my comments as questions or just comments, I don't mind. Well, we would take on board your views in a very positive manner. Well, sometimes things just interact and affect each other. Our study will certainly touch on those issues. It's now my turn. To save time, I just want to tell the Secretary that I would give a written submission to the government which contains some proposals. So we have raised questions, and some of those are covered, so I don't want to repeat them. It's already 12:10. We're already overrun by more than 25 minutes. So I would like to wrap up this item. Mr. Look would like to have a second round, but time doesn't allow that, so we need to move on. Not yet time to press the button. Let's invite the officials to join us for the next item. Then that is a takeover arrangement and tolling scenarios for Tai Lam Tunnel upon the government's takeover. Members, please note Mr. Luk Chung Hong's motion, for which a vote will be taken, and we need a quorum for that. So after you have spoken, members, please remain so that we can complete the item. All right, if the officials are ready, I will ask them to walk us through the table. I understand there's a PowerPoint presentation. Please do it as briefly as possible. Chairman and members, the franchise for the Tai Lam Tunnel will expire on the 30th of May 2025. The government will take over, and taking this opportunity, we are going to adjust the tolling levels, the tolls. We will make reference to past arrangements for other tunnels to ensure a seamless takeover. We will also use the new services, and that is the free flow tolling service and Hong Kong e-toll. There will be no substantial changes to the tolling arrangement. As for the tolls, we will suitably downward adjusted the tolls to achieve certain policy conditions, such as to control the traffic flow through tolling arrangements, to make sure use of the spare capacity to alleviate the traffic of a Total Harbour Road, and also to ensure that the Tai Lam Tunnel traffic is smooth, and to support the operation of the logistics industry, and to attract commercial vehicles to use Tai Lam Tunnel, and also adopting the user pays principle, and to maintain the normal operation of tunnel through tolling arrangements, and also to secure the necessary resources for future infrastructure investment. Having regarded the relevant conditions, we have three scenarios for members' discussion. Scenario 1, drastically adjust the tolls for private cars and taxis by 22% to 29%. So that we can use the capacity more effectively and ensure that smooth traffic, and also to alleviate Twin Moon Road and Total Highways traffic. Scenario 2, we further adjust downward tolls for private cars and commercial vehicles to $35 across the board. It's estimated that during peak hours, there will be excess traffic. The speed will be lowered, and there will be 7 meters of tailback, resulting in obvious congestion, and it will not be very effective in directing traffic from the Twin Moon Road and Total Highway, and will end up losing. We believe that this should not be pursued. Scenario 3.
Time varying toll. The toll for private cars will vary with time periods ranging from $45 during peak period and $35 during normal period to $20 during off-peak period, with a deduction rate of 20 to 66%. For taxis, there will be an all-day uniform toll of $30 with a reduction rate of 48%, while commercial vehicles will have an all-day uniform toll of $45 with a reduction rate of 30% to 79%. We will be able to better manage the traffic under this scenario and to make use of alternate roads to make better use of tunnel resources. Compared to scenario 1, the revenue may be lower. My colleagues from the Transport Department will walk members through the data and analysis of the 3 scenarios with a PowerPoint slide. The Transport Department will continue to look at the traffic situation in the district. We will construct an additional traffic lane heading towards Altao at Pok Oi roundabout to increase capacity of the exit road and to also put in place bus interchange services. Mr. Look asked us to lower the toll for Tai Lam Tunnel and lower the toll substantially during peak hours or even offer free of charge tunnel services. We have taken on board the expectations of the public. We proposes a number of scenarios for the members' consideration. For the commercial vehicles, the tolls can drop from by about 22 to 79%. We think that the reduction is not acceptable from the point of view of use of public money and the traffic management. We have to make sure that the traffic is smooth, and to maintain the tunnel, we need to charge a toll, and we have to also maintain the tunnel. After the presentation given by my colleague, we will take questions from the members. After listening to the stakeholders and the members, we will formulate the proposal of toll of Tai Lam Tunnel and introduce the bill into the Ledge Code within this year. Please excuse me. Well, Transport Department, please be very brief because actually Undersecretary has already said what you're about to say. Good afternoon. We have prepared a set of PowerPoint slides to talk about the toll arrangement for Tai Lam Tunnel. On the 30th of May 2025, the government will take over the Tai Lam Tunnel and Yuen Long Approach Road. The current Tai Lam Tunnel and Yuen Long Approach Road ordinance will be appealed, and the relevant tunnels will be brought under the Road Tunnels Government Ordinance. We are preparing for the takeover. As set out in the paper, we want to achieve certain objectives. We want to make better use of the spare capacity of the tunnel and to alleviate the traffic congestion at the alternative road, that is Tuen Mun Road. We have to make sure that the traffic is smooth during when they travel inside the Tai Lam Tunnel, and we also have to make sure that the tunnel serves function as the tunnel for logistics sector. Also, we ask the operators to maintain the tunnel, and we also have to adopt this efficiency first principle as well as the user pays principle. Tai Lam Tunnel is a direct link connecting Northwest New Territories and the urban area. The alternative road of Tai Lam Tunnel is Tuen Mun Road. Depending on the origin and destination of the vehicles, Tuen Mun Road is an alternate road. The Tuen Mun Road is already overloaded with traffic exceeding its capacity about 14%, while total highways were saturated with traffic exceeding its capacity by about 1%. The Tin Khao Road is already very easy as well, and its capacity is being exceeded by about 10%. We have to be careful to not drive further traffic to Tin Khao Bridge. We have to take into account the entire traffic situation in Northwest New Territories. There's been growth in the number of vehicles and traffic flow, which been driven from 290,000 vehicles to 360,000 vehicles. There's been a rise of 25%. Over the past 10 years, the number of traffic flows number of vehicles using the tunnel has been increasing. The tunnel reaches its 96% of its capacity at 2019. In 2023, upon a various adjustment to the toll for taxis is $58, private cars $58. Under such toll level during peak hours, the VC ratio and the usage rate is as high as 81%. There will be a growth in the population of new Northwest territories. Even if we keep the high level of toll, the spare capacity of the tunnel will be at 15%. The Tai Lam Tunnel is located at a strategic position, linking the airport, boundary control points. So it's very important for the logistics sector. Over 30% of the vehicles making use of the tunnel are goods vehicles. We want to encourage the goods vehicles to make use of Tai Lam Tunnel, but we have to make sure that the tunnel will not be congested. This PowerPoint slide is the key of this presentation. We give you analysis on the various scenarios. First, if we keep the current toll level with the increase of population of the new territories, we think that the traffic flow will increase. In 2026, if we keep the current toll level, then the VC ratio will be at 0.85. So we will only have 15% of spare capacity. And the capacity will exceed by 20% of the Tai Lam Tunnel. And there will be further traffic congestion. Let us look at the various scenarios where we lower the toll. Scenario 1 maintains the existing fixed toll structure of the Tai Lam Tunnel while lowering the tolls for private cars, taxis, and other commercial vehicles to 45%, with a toll reduction of 22%. For other commercial vehicles, the reduction rate will be more noticeable at about 30% to 79%, which reflects the efficiency first principle. This scenario aims to reduce tolls in response to public expectation and achieve more desirable traffic management. We think that the traffic at the Tai Lam Tunnel is expected to increase with the capacity being fully utilized, while the vehicular flow could remain smooth. In addition, the current traffic conditions on the Tuen Mun Road and Tolo Highway could be alleviated. Scenario 2. We assumes further reduction to $35 in the fixed toll for private cars, taxis, and other commercial vehicles. This scenario expects that this substantial toll reduction will induce excessive additional traffic, which will cause congestion at the Tai Lam Tunnel and affect Tai Lam Tunnel users. We envisage an overcapacity in traffic of about or over 5%, lower traffic speed, and a traffic queue of about 700 meters at the entrance of the tunnel during peak hours, but without obvious effect of further diverting the traffic from the Tuen Mun Road and Tolo Highway. There will be a tailback to the tunnel exit and in turn affect the original smooth traffic on the slip road leading to Tolo Tunnel and the Tuen Mun Road eastbound heading to Tsuen Wan, causing more extensive congestion. So it's very obvious that we should not accept scenario 2. Scenario 3. It reduces tunnel tolls as much as possible in response to public expectation, and we will put in place a time-varying arrangement. Tai Lam Tunnel are different from other 3-road harbor crossings. Even if we implement the time-varying toll, the effect in managing traffic may not be as obvious because we have an alternate road of a Tai Lam Tunnel, that is the Tuen Mun Road. Drivers use Tuen Mun Road as an alternative to Tai Lam Tunnel, so the diversion effect may not be as obvious. We note the members' views, and we will try to see if we can allow drivers to make use of the tunnel at a lower fare during non-peak hours. We think that the traffic conditions of this scenario will be similar to that of scenario 1. I will not talk about the conclusion in the interest of time. In terms of timetable, in the upcoming few months, we will listen to the members' view and formulate the toll arrangement. With the support of the community and the LegCo, we will introduce the bill into the LegCo within the fourth quarter this year, and hopefully it can be passed in the first quarter next year. And in May 2025, we will take over the tunnel. Thank you. Mr. Lan Sai-ho, for giving us this presentation. There are 15 members who have pressed the button, 3 minutes per member. Because of limited time, I'll read out the names of the members who pressed the button. Charles Yu Chong, Lau Kwok Fan, Regina Ip, Chan Siu Hong, Frankie Yik, Gary Chang, Chan Pui Lun, Yang Wen Kit, Luk Chung Hong, Michael Tian, Leung Man Kwan, Lam So Wai, Holden Chow, Yim Kong, Chen Han Ben. 3 minutes, including question and answer. I'll extend the meeting to 1 p.m. Mr. Charles Yu Chong. Thank you, Chairman. People have been looking forward to a lower toll level upon takeover of Tai Lam Tunnel to make their travel more convenient. And hopefully the Two Moon Road will not be as congested in the future. The sector wants to see a lower toll level as well. However, I'm disappointed by the various toll scenarios proposed by the government. Under scenario 2, well, it seems that the government will not be accepting scenario 2. And it seems that it's impossible for us to charge a toll at $35 or any price lower than $45 for private cars. The administration is assessing the traffic flow taking the busiest hours in the morning. However, I think that the administration should take into account the average traffic flow during peak hours on weekdays. For northbound is 0.4, southbound 0.6 in terms of VC ratio. Why do you have to use the busiest hour to analyze the traffic flow situation? I think that you should set the peak hour as the busiest hour and should not just use the busiest hour to calculate the traffic flow. You can allow the goods vehicles to use the tunnel free of charge during non-peak hours, and I think that a lot of vehicle drivers would make use of the tunnel instead of Two Moon Road. Thank you. I think that we have different understanding of the data that have been used. As for scenario 3, we haven't really set the peak hours yet. I'll ask the Transport Department to explain about the discrepancy between the 2 hours. During CQ, when we answered members' question, we took into account all of the tunnels in Hong Kong, and that is why we made use of the average figures of the entire year. We also include the figures during holidays, and that is why the VC ratio was lower. However, we have to cater to the needs of the people during peak hours, and that is why we have to make sure that the tunnel is smooth during the busiest hour, and we have to reflect the actual situation. Next, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you, Chairman. I am disappointed. When Tai Lam Tunnel was commissioned in 1998, it was constructed under the build, operate, transfer mode, and I understand why the operators charged a higher toll. Yunlong residents have been paying a high toll for the past 26 years, and they are looking forward to a lower toll upon government's takeover. However, if we look at the three scenarios, the toll level are still very high. I'm disappointed by the level, and I don't think that the administration should keep the toll level as high. There are three reasons for that. The government said that they adopt this users pay principle. For the new tunnel like Longshan Tunnel, Chungkwon Old Tunnel, Tumun Cheklapgot Tunnel, Central Wan Chai Bypass Tunnel, Chungkwon Old Lambton Tunnel, all of these are offered for use free of charge. Why do you adopt a different principle for Thailand Tunnel? Why do you adopt this efficiency first principle just with the Thailand Tunnel? Why are you offering new tunnels for use free of charge? I also disagree with your assumptions in terms of traffic flow and, well, actually in Huanggan boundary control point, it will not be used by the goods vehicles because the goods vehicles will be using Shenzhen Bay BCP, and there will be more and more vehicles using the Two Moon Road. When the Shatin bypass is constructed, there will be further traffic diversion. With a high toll level, traffic diversion cannot be achieved, and the residents will have to pay a high toll. My last question. In terms of traffic management and control, when the Route 11 is completed, there will be traffic diversion. And when that happens, will you offer the Thailand Tunnel free of charge? For the most efficient scenario 3, the toll charged is higher than that of other 3 road harbor crossings. I will not support the government proposals if they do not change the 3 scenarios, and I hope that during non-peak hours, the government should lower the toll.
主席，Secretary, well, Mr. Lau's views are noted. Well, individual tolls will have to be considered for individual tunnels, and even for new tunnels, we have to consider this principle. But of course, there are other factors at play. The 4 principles apply to all tunnels. And also, Mr. Lau mentions in the future there will be major infrastructure to be commissioned. Will there be further future consideration to adjust the tolls? Of course, this cannot be ruled out. But at present, we have to consider the diversion effect from the diversion from Tuen Mun Highway without causing congestion at Tai Lam Tunnel. So these are what the scenarios analysis covered. Mrs. Regina Yip. Mr. Lau Kok Fan said there are many free tunnels. So what's the government's principles about this? Well, there are different people saying different things. Some people are saying that why do we invest so much in such important infrastructure and charge nothing? And we have to let people know that the infrastructure is a massive public investment, and we should make the best use and do not abuse any infrastructure. We have to let people know that resources are valuable. So I'm against providing infrastructure service free of charge. It's difficult to forecast exact traffic conditions, but if you look at the experience of the 3 Cross Harbour Tunnel, I would say time-varying tolls arrangement has been successful. As also, we have to look at commercial vehicles and their operations. Is an important connection with the ports and crossings. So I'm in favor of lower tolls for commercial vehicles. I'm against free toll. I'm a private car owner. I use Tai Lam Tunnel a lot. I believe we should help commercial vehicles, but private cars take up a lot of road space. So I think Mrs. Yip agrees with much on a lot of those proposals. We would consider how we can better support commercial vehicles. The franchise will expire on the 30th of May next year. I welcome the proposal to reduce tolls and also to provide for free tolling arrangements or e-toll. I hope in the future that there will be no mishaps such as charging the wrong tolls as in the past. It's an important trunk road. It's an important transport infrastructure connecting strategic positions from the NT to the urban area. So we need to carefully consider the tolling arrangement to make the best use of the spare capacity of Tai Lam Tunnel, diverting traffic from Tuen Mun Road and the Tolo Highway. And of course, we have to accord priority to public transport. I am grateful to the government for conducting public consultation earlier and also the provision of 3 scenarios. I agree with Mrs. Regina Yip. For the 3 Cross Harbour tunnels, time-varying toll has been a success. So I hope that the scenario 3 can be considered. I don't think there's a lot of controversy concerning peak hours, concerning the direction of traffic during peak hours from Tuen Mun Road and Tolo Highway. But what about non-peak hours? I believe more can be done to reduce the tolls. I'm not against charging certain tolls. But if it's free, then I'm concerned about the diversion of traffic. But how do you come up with the toll levels? You do charge different tolls. For example, there is a different toll for private cars. Or what's the basis of the toll levels in scenario 3? How do we come up with the tolls for private cars? Well, I will defer to my colleague from the Transport Department. I think that we still need to adhere to the users pay principle during non-peak hours. The Tai Lam Tunnel is 3.8 kilometers in length. The maintenance cost is quite substantial. If during non-peak hours, vehicles do not have to share the cost or the part of the cost, it would be unfair to other users. Or perhaps for the sake of time management, you can tell Mr. Chan how you come up with the tolls after the meeting. Mr. Frankie Yik, we agree with the government in that we need to charge certain tolls so that we can make sure that it's properly maintained. But the overriding principle is that during peak hours, we need to make sure that one of the 3 roads would be congestion-free. At present, on both sides of the tunnel, the roads are congested during peak hours. So the VCR is 0.98 if we fix the tolls. If possible, I hope you can do more assessment of time varying tolls so that under scenario 3, tolls for non-peak hours can be further reduced. You know that commercial vehicles have a very tough operating environment at present. They will welcome further downward adjustment of tolls for commercial vehicles. Please consider this. And you are going to introduce e-toll. Can you still adopt time varying toll? Because in the past, toll is collected manually, and now you have successful experience. Can we have time varying toll for commercial vehicles? Well, during the previous consultation exercises, the stakeholders have different views. For example, if you do this for taxi, there will be a dispute with the passengers, because the toll to be paid will vary. As for goods vehicles, people in the industry will think that you would force people to operate during wee hours. So that's why we want to have a fixed toll for commercial vehicles. I can agree with your argument with taxis. But for commercial vehicles, they can choose. It's not the same as the case with 3 cross-harbor tunnels. So I hope you can reduce the tolls, or you can reduce the toll under the time varying arrangement for commercial vehicles, not taxis. We have a lot of exchanges with government, and there are opinions expressed by the community. I agree with the argument for time varying toll, as I have indicated on various occasions. That's a matter on principle. So I want to make it clear that I subscribe to the idea of time varying toll, because you need to satisfy different needs. You have to consider that during peak hours, the traffic should be smooth, and also at the same time, the public will not like to pay very high tolls now that it's been taken over by the government. So I believe time varying toll is the right balance. But in terms of implementation, as the Transport Department officer said, this case is different from that for the 3 cross-harbor tunnels. You can just have a 2-tier system, $35 for peak hours, $20 for non-peak hours, and that would do. And I don't think that would have a very significant impact on traffic. It's not that traffic congestion, if it's $20, no traffic congestion if it's $35. It's not as simple as that. I hope you will confer tangible benefits for the public to see.
We
hear Mr. Zhang's comment. I'll ask the Transport Department to explain why we need to segregate peak hours from non-peak hours. Let us go back to the slide. If you look at scenarios 1 and 3, you will know why we have this time varying toll. In scenario 1, the price for taxi or toll for taxis is $45, which is the same as that for private cars. However, under time varying toll, the fare for taxis will be lower. When we deliberate the time varying toll arrangement for the 3 road harbor crossings, we understand that there cannot be too significant of a toll difference between private cars and taxi. We have to cater to the needs of the taxi trade. That is why we need to maintain the toll level at scenario 3. We have to vote on a motion as at the end of the meeting. Please stay in the room after you've spoken. We need to keep a quorum. Mr. Chan Pui-lan. Thank you, Chairman. I support the 4 principles set out in paragraph 11 of the paper. I'm in favor of scenario 3 time varying toll, and I think that is the most appropriate arrangement. I also think that we have to impose a toll for the use of tunnels. Apart from construction cost, we also have to maintain the tunnel. If we offer the tunnel for use free of charge during non-peak hours, that will affect the revenue that can be generated, and the administration will have to incur a heavy cost on maintaining. About 30% of the users of the tunnel are goods vehicles, and they impose heavy wear and tear on the tunnels, and that is why we have to charge a toll for us to meet the maintenance and repair expenditure. Also, we have to set the 3 periods that are the peak, normal, and off-peak periods very carefully. I know that the administration is working on the details. I want to know what the government's plan is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will detail the hours designated as peak, normal, and off-peak period when we publish our legislative proposal. We'll look at the traffic flow and we'll decide on when it will be the peak period, when will be the normal period, and when will be the off-peak period. Thank you. I know that we have overrun and members have to go to other meetings. After Mr. Benson Loke has spoken, I will ask members to vote on his motion. So please pay attention to this. For members in the complex, if you want to join the vote, please come back to the conference room. Mr. Yang Wen-kit. Thank you, Chairman. I am in favor of scenario 3, that is the time varying toll arrangement. I also agree with what Mr. Luk Chung-hong said. During non-peak hours, we should offer the tunnel for use free of charge. Especially during nighttime, there are barely any vehicles using the tunnel. I know that the government is not trying to make a profit by charging tolls, so perhaps we should offer the tunnel free of charge during night time. I agree with the plan for peak hours and normal hours, but I think that we should offer the tunnel free of charge during night time. For road harbor crossings, the toll is charged at $25 for taxis. I think that will facilitate the passengers in deciding which tunnel to use or which road harbor crossings to use. Also, I think that we should have a combination toll plans, say for passengers or drivers who use Tate's current tunnel, and when they arrive at a Tai Lam tunnel, they can be charged at a specific level. For us to achieve the diversion effect, we have to look at all the tunnels connecting New Territories and Kowloon. After taking over all the cross-mountain tunnels, we have to look at the toll level on a holistic manner. We have to form a combination plan on the toll level for road harbor crossings and road mountain crossings. Well, that's a new suggestion. I'll ask the member what he really means after the meeting. But as I've mentioned in my opening remarks, we look at the traffic flow of the particular tunnel before we decide on the toll level. We will not just look at what the other tunnels or road harbor crossings are charging to decide on what toll level we should charge at this particular tunnel. We'll put Mr. Luk Chung-hung's motion to a vote after he's spoken. Thank you. I moved a motion on the toll level. We want to lower the toll level of Thailand Tunnel during non-peak hours and even consider offering the tunnel free of charge during non-peak hours. We have to take into account the traffic flow during different hours. The administration said that during peak hours, the capacity of the tunnel is at 88%. I hope that the government will give us concrete figures. The administration said that they will apply the user pays principle. We need to know how much we need to spend on the repair and maintenance of the tunnel, because the construction cost is irrelevant because it was constructed under the BOT mode. We need to know how much the government needs to spend on repair and maintenance so that we know if the government is making a profit from operating the tunnel. We need to alleviate the burden on the trade and the private car drivers and owners. We also want to divert traffic from Tuen Mun Road and Tolo highways. We want to lower the carbon emission, and we want to have the drivers not take a detour. If we lower the toll to $10 during non-peak hours or even offer it free of charge, drivers would make use of Tai Lam Tunnel, and that will reduce carbon emission. This is very important. Has the administration calculated the reduction of carbon emission when drivers make use of Tai Lam Tunnel? I think that we should adopt this time varying toll, and we should adopt a uniform toll for commercial vehicles. For taxis, I think we should charge them just $25 so that it would be easier for the passengers to remember. For commercial vehicles, maybe we should lower the toll for them during non-peak hours to achieve the diversion effect. Because with the proposed toll level, people will be making use of a Tuen Mun Road, and during peak hours, Tuen Mun Road is heavily congested. In the interest of time, I will make a very brief response. In terms of reduction of carbon emission, we think that the most effective way is to promote smart and green transportation. In 2030, there will not be any new registration of diesel cars, and that will lower the carbon emissions. A lot of members ask us to lower the toll. We will consider it. Chairman, I asked the administration to give us the two figures. I hope that they will submit it after the meeting. Just now, Mr. Luk asked you for two figures. There are the number of vehicles using the tunnel per hour and the cost of repair and maintenance per year. When you amend the legislation and introduce the bill into the Leg Code, please give us the figures. It will be best if you can give us the figures after the meeting. We will do so. Thank you. Let's process the motion moved by Mr. Luk first. The motions has been projected onto the screen. Perhaps I ask Mr. Look to briefly walk us through the motion. I propose the motion for discussion of the panel. As the Thailam Tunnel franchise will expire on the 30th of May 2025, the panel asked the administration to lower the toll level upon takeover and lower the toll level substantially during non-peak hours, or even consider offering the tunnel for use free of charge to achieve diversion effect to alleviate the traffic flow at Two Moon Road and lower the commute cost and time of Yunnan and Two Moon residents. Only members of this panel can vote on this motion. With those in favor, please raise their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many? 9 members are in favor. Those against, please raise their hands. Those abstain, please raise their hands. 1. The motion is passed. Thank you. Let's move on. Please show the names of the members who have pressed the button. Mr. Michael Tian. Thank you, Chairman. On this tolling scenarios for Thailam Tunnel upon the government's takeover, I am in favor of scenario 2. The vehicles will have to go through Ting Khao Bridge, whether they use Two Moon Road or Thailam Tunnel. The VC ratio of Ting Khao Bridge is 1.21. That is, the capacity has been exceeded. According to the government's analysis, when the toll of Thailam Tunnel is increased or lower by $2.5, then there will be a change of 0.01 to the VC ratio of Ting Khao Bridge. I think that we should propose a scenario 4. Scenario 4 is similar with scenario 2, but during peak hours, we should lower the toll for private cars from $58 to $37.5. The VC will be lower to 1.2 when that happens. Two Moon Road is offered for use free of charge. During normal period, Ting Khao Bridge may be congested because it's also free of charge. If we offer the tunnel for use free of charge during normal period, there could be congestion. So I think that we should charge a toll, but it should be set at a level of $20. During morning hours, Ting Khao Bridge's traffic flow is very smooth, and for Two Moon Road during nighttime is also used by barely any vehicles. We have a number of renowned restaurants in the new territories. We should encourage people to travel to the new territories. We should also cater to the needs of the logistics sector. For the $45, $35, and $20 proposal under scenario 3, I will not support it. I think that you should consider this proposal of $37.5, $20, and free of charge. Two Moon Road is free of charge and is still very well maintained by the government. Today, we have 9 tunnels of the government that are offered also free of charge for use. Don't we have to maintain and repair them? For Thailam Tunnel, we could charge a toll during peak hours and normal hours. My stance is very clear. Currently, the internet connection of Thailam Tunnel is very weak because only 2 of the network operators are operating in that area. I would like to extend the meeting further by 10 minutes. Agreed? 30 seconds. Undersecretary. Thank you, Chairman. For the scenario 4 mentioned by the member, $37.5 is not that far off from $35 proposed in scenario 2. In the first 2 years, the traffic congestion may not be as serious, but in a few years' time, it will be just as congested as what's proposed under scenario 2. So you can come up with a toll level between $37.5 and $45. Next, Mr. Lim and Kwong. Thank you. I'm in favor also of the time-varying toll arrangement. But as Mr. Gary Chang said, we should just have 2 periods that are charging different tolls. I don't think that is easy for members of the public to understand the relationship between the use of the tunnel between private cars and taxis. I think that we should encourage drivers to make use of different roads and tunnels during non-peak hours. I think that the administration should explain further why we have to designate 3 different periods. Second, as mentioned by Mr. Yang Wing-kit, we should come up with a combination toll charging mode. In new territories, when the vehicles want to go to Kowloon, they can make use of different roads, tunnels. For people who want to go from North District to Kowloon, they can make use of T4 Trunk Road. How can we encourage drivers to make use of the most direct road harbor crossings to go to Hong Kong Island? I hope that by having a combination mode of charging tolls, we can encourage that. And I hope that the administration consider it.
As I've explained, why we have come up with 3 different time periods. Well, we will supplement more information later. As for combination tolls, I start to understand what Mr. Leung is driving at. We have to consider all the different combination of tunnels from NT to the Cross Harbour tunnels, etc. In the future, when we review the tunnel tolls from NT to urban area, we would have to look at the traffic conditions for the tunnels and for the Cross Harbour tunnels as well. Well, this factor will be taken into account when we conduct future reviews. Mr. Lam So Wai, well, I'm not a panel member, but with regard to Tai Lam Tunnel, the time-varying toll proposal is actually in line with the proposal from A4 members. We'd like to have 2 tiers, peak and off-peak. And I would like to supplement some of the points made by my colleagues concerning combination tolls. For example, T4 plus the Tai Lam and Tascan Tunnel and Cross Harbour Tunnel, we need to have tolls for different combinations. For Tuen Mun to Ma Shan, you have to use a number of tunnels. If you have to pay $45 or $35 for different tunnel, well, that will amount to a big sum. So perhaps you can provide some concessionary combination tolls. And you want to encourage the use of new energy vehicles or e-vehicles. My colleagues from the A4 would like to meet the Secretary on our ideas on the possibility of combination tolls for Tuen Mun to Chankono and then cross the harbor for taxis and light goods vehicle? Can you provide some concession to them? Well, they pay $25, and if you use a taxi, I pay $50. For the Eastern Harbor crossing, it's $30 sometimes, so it's cheaper. So can you provide some concessions for commercial vehicles for the use of these other tunnels? One of the purposes of the tolls is to regulate traffic. Our transport policy is that we want to encourage people to use public transport, not private cars. That would mean more efficient utilization of the roads we have. So it would go against our policy to provide concessions to private cars, commercial vehicles. We will consider their case individually. Mr. Houghton Chow, I hope the Secretary will understand that now that you have taken over Tai Lam Tunnel and you have to come up with a different toll arrangements, people do have expectations. Many people in Tuen Mun use Tuen Mun Road for commute. They don't have other choice. And now we are given this rare chance to have some diversion. So people expect something to come up with the takeover. Under scenario 3, time varying toll, private cars should be asked to pay an even lower toll during non-peak hours. It's now proposed to be $20. I hope this time you can come up with an arrangement that would direct traffic away from Tuen Mun Road. The congestions on Tuen Mun Road will cause problems all the way back to Tuen Mun Town Center and, for example, Long Shu Road. So diversion would help them. And now you have different infrastructure to T9, and they will come on stream in 2032. So in the short term, well, this is the only opportunity to take over by the government of the Tai Lam Tunnel. Many people do really think that you can come up with something that would alleviate congestion of Tuen Mun Road. So there's definitely some room for downward adjustment for private cars during non-peak hours, off-peak hours rather. One of the first policy objective is to make the best use of the spare capacity of Tai Lam Tunnel to divert traffic away from Tuen Mun Road. But can we divert more traffic if we reduce the toll? Well, that's only possible to a limited extent. We may end up with congestions for the tunnels and the Tuen Mun Road, etc. It's just counterproductive. Time is limited, so I would like to just offer my comments. First of all, I support the reduction of tolls. If I have to make a choice, I would go for option 3. I'm against providing toll-free arrangement during off-peak hours. But if you can do two things, I will be for it. Tin Moon Road is very congested because at Tin Cow Bridge, well, there's a too much traffic leading from Tin Moon Road to Tin Cow Bridge. And for Tolo Highway, it's because there's a project, a works project, which has been going on for 3 or 4 years and hasn't been completed. And then instead of 4-lane traffic, you get only 3. I hope the repair works project can be completed very quickly. And then if you can resume normal traffic for the 2 roads concerned, you may consider toll-free. Well, major projects cannot be done overnight. Takes time. It's not a question with the interchange. It's about the capacity of the Tin Cow Bridge when we talk about congestion of the Tin Moon Road. Many members today have asked for the rationale of tolls. First of all, the Secretary is right in saying that it's to regulate traffic, to prevent congestion. If there's already congestion, you should control traffic or alleviate the traffic conditions through toll arrangements. That's reasonable. When for time-varying tolls, well, they have such an arrangement has worked elsewhere. It facilitates people's choice. So I believe it would be reasonable to implement time-varying toll for Thailand Tunnel, because if we maintain the tolls at a high level, for example, $45 or $58, which would be very expensive. So we want to facilitate people's transport choice. Well, you can, of course, charge $45 during peak hours for those traveling from Yuen Long to the urban area. Well, there are a lot of vehicles, but what about the other direction? If you go to Yuen Long during the morning, can you charge a lower toll? Perhaps you can have a time-varying toll for one direction only. And after the toll reductions, you have to pay attention to possible congestion in Yuen Long, because there are already congested conditions out there. So in the future, congestion may become even more serious. So perhaps some road projects are called for to enhance the capacity. And I believe a 2-tier tolling arrangement will be sufficient, just peak and off-peak. There is no need to have a third tier of normal period. Please consider our suggestions. Thank you. Your views are noted. We will consider all 3 proposals from you, Chairman. All right, it's already time. So time adjourned. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for coming to our meeting, government officials.